And we are live, Mr. Chair.
Good evening and welcome to the Tuesday, February 16th, 2021 Financial Planning Committee. It's after the hour of 7 o'clock, so I'd like to call the meeting to order. I have a little thing I have to read here from Governor Baker. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, GL 30A, paragraph 18, and the governor's March 15th, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place. This meeting will be conducted via remote participation. No in-person attendance by members of the public will be permitted. This meeting will be live streamed and will have no option for public participation. First order of business is the approval of minutes from our February 4th meeting. Looking for motion.
To approve.
I hear a second.
Second.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I just had a small correction that I noticed.
Okay.
At the very top under members present, it just had my name left over from previous meetings.
Well, you were there, but not as a
Not as a member.
committee member.
Under the wrong heading. So as amended, we have to do a vote and you have to say yes. So John Rapa,
Yes.
Mike Hodge,
Yes.
Thomas Spataro,
Yes.
and I say yes as well. We have one member that not able to attend tonight, so those are approved. Next item of business is the preliminary 2022 capital budget. John Cudere, do you want to take that?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Tonight I want to walk you through, and I'm going to use screen sharing here to show you, hopefully that appears, to show you the preliminary, drop it down a little bit, the preliminary fiscal 2022 capital budget. So just, for our viewers at home or anybody that might be watching, there's the difference between a capital budget, a capital improvement plan, and a capital project are the following. So the capital improvement plan is a 6-year plan that we maintain, that we're in the process of updating right now, of all the capital projects that we intend to undertake over the next half dozen years or so. A capital project is any physical asset with a value of $25,000 or more, a useful life of 5 years or more. So those are all put into this plan. Now, the 6 years of the plan work as follows. As we add projects in, they are typically in the out year, and each year the projects move up. The projects that are going to town meeting for the upcoming 2021 town meeting, that's your capital budget. So the capital budget, or just simply the projects out of your 6-year plan that are moving forward for funding requests and approval at town meeting. So what I'm showing right now on my screen is the draft capital budget for fiscal 2022. And tonight, we are going to hear from the police chief and the fire chief with regard to their capital plans. So they're going to talk about all the projects they have in their plans for their department for the next 6 years. And specifically, and in more detail, their requests for under the capital budget for fiscal 2022, these projects that are going to be coming to town meeting for review and approval. So I just want to walk you through where we are. I mentioned we're in a little bit of flux based on some of the impacts of COVID-19 on our free cash, the amount of money that we can spend on a pay-as-you-go basis. So we've had to move some projects around and we've had to bump a few things. But right now, let me just walk you through the projects that we have in the budget going to town meeting this year or at least what we're recommending. I'm sorry, did somebody say something? Oh, okay. I thought I
Amanda was on it. Sorry, let's shut off.
Okay. So, we list out the projects, but then we also have the columns on the right of the table that's in front of you that shows the different categories, because not everything is funded through pay-as-you-go cash or bond. It's a combination of funds on hand, free cash, community preservation, grants, enterprise funds. These could be the EMS revolving fund, or it could be water and sewer enterprise funds that help to finance some of these projects. So what we're looking to bring forward is police cruiser replacements. There's 3 on the agenda for the capital budget. We have 2 vehicle replacements scheduled for the fire department, and that's a pickup truck, car 3, and car 1, which is the chief's vehicle, an SUV replacement. Again, both these vehicles have been in the plan for 6 years, literally, and moved up every year to get on deck for this upcoming town meeting. Then we have a project that you guys haven't seen and we haven't discussed because it wasn't part of the capital improvement plan, but it was conceived of with the rec department and the DPW director, and that is to add pickleball courts to the Ellsworth McAfee Park on 135. And so that's the community preservation process. They don't do a 6-year plan. You know, they look at all the projects anew each year. So that project was applied for, and the CPC has approved it, which means it will be going forward to town meeting. Now, what we do is, since you guys are effectively the capital planning committee, we do like to make sure that you're aware of any capital projects that are going before town meeting. And you will be asked in your capacity as a committee member to make a recommendation on that CPC project, the pickleball. But it's a great project. You'll hear about it with the DPW director at your meeting next week. Then we come into the DPW projects in the highway division. We've got roadway improvements. This is the 300, or in this case, $310,000 of free cash that we add to our roadway budget of 1.1 million each year. And you have a couple of truck replacements. And then you're going to see 3 projects with zeros. In order to meet the constraints of what we have for available funds without issuing debt in this capital budget, we have had to postpone culvert and drainage replacements. It was a new program that we were trying to bring in to deal with some of our infrastructure needs. A 20-ton dump truck. This is one of the really large vehicles. This one's $343,000. And then a loader replacement. We have 2 loaders, and one of them is due for a regular end-of-life replacement, and that's over $200,000. So under normal circumstances where you have, $1.5 million of free cash to spend on capital investment, we'd be able to do those projects. This year we can't unless we're going to issue debt. And as I said to you at your last meeting, we are not going down that path for equipment replacements just yet. I think fiscal 23, we'll see where we're at and decide if we have too much of a backlog, whether or not we need to issue debt, or if we can, hopefully with improving economy, see our year-end budget surplus be a little bit healthier. Moving down into DPW and the sewer enterprise funds is a SCADA system. This again, as well, has been in the plan for 6 years. This is the electronic wireless system that allows the DPW water and sewer folks to remotely monitor the levels of the water in the tanks and issues with the sewer pumps. Right now, that stuff all has to be done manually through rounds, and we're not always able to find the problems as quickly as we could if we had a more current system. A bunch of the facilities have already been upgraded, and this is the next stage, which is the physical improvements that need to be made in order for this wireless system to go into place. And that would be paid for with a 50% out of the water enterprise and 50% out of the sewer enterprise. So it's baked into the rates that are plan for those two enterprise endeavors for the next 5 years. That brings us to the Water Enterprise Fund. We have a dam that we own in Shrewsbury and Boylston, right on the line, that needs to be removed. And the DPW director has been seeking grant funding to do that. So in this round, we're looking to do the design and permitting work to remove the dam. It's about $200,000. And we are applying for a grant for a 75% of that cost. And again, the DPW director will get into more detail. There is a report, you've seen this in prior years. Again, this is a project that we've been talking about. In total, it's about $1 million to remove this dam. And so we have done things and put ourselves into various programs at the state, pre-qualifying programs that would give us access to potentially some grant funds to help us with the removal. But this is the next phase of that. And then we have a utility tractor piece of equipment being replaced out of essentially free cash from the water and sewer enterprise funds. And then last but not least, I have a placeholder here for Northborough K-8 public schools. They don't have any big projects that they're seeking in fiscal 2022. They do have a roof replacement that they're looking at for fiscal 2023. But in fiscal 2022, they requested about $70,000 in small equipment replacements, snow blowers and some furniture and a few things like that. And I've already had a preliminary discussion with the superintendent, and essentially those projects don't qualify as capital projects under our policy and would not be appropriate to be included in the capital budget. But we do want to recognize the fact that, you can't just tell a department that it doesn't qualify for capital budget expenditures, but we're not going to give it to you in the operating budget either. There has to be a home for these things. And this committee has worked very closely with the departments, fire department, DPW, and police to move smaller equipment replenishments into their operating budget, things like hose, snow blowers, weapons, things that come up on a regular cycle. And so each of these departments has a small capital outlay line. And so one of the things I want to talk with this committee about is your support for me going back and having the superintendent basically modify his budget to include a capital equipment line that would allow him to, on an annual basis, plan to replace, $30,000 or $40,000 worth of these small frogs and lizards, as we refer to them, desks and microscopes and snow blowers and things of that nature. That this process, capital planning, the capital improvement plan, is for, as I said at the beginning, for projects that are $25,000 of value or more. But really, most of what we do, as you can see here, these are things that are $100,000, $1,000 or more. And we're lucky in this town. We've been able to acquire most of those things through on a pay-as-you-go basis, at least the smaller equipment and stuff. And then we do bond, large building projects and land acquisitions and things of that nature. So for right now, for planning purposes, I have a 0 in there. And so my intent is, the items that they've requested don't qualify. They really don't belong here. But it does beg a discussion with the school department about if we were to support the creation of a capital outlay line, that needs to stay and be dedicated, and not during difficult budget times be diverted to pay for other operational expenses. It needs to be dedicated, and that's how they're going to fund small equipment outlay in the future. So it's a positive discussion. Superintendent was open to it. I believe we have the ability or an opportunity through the operating budget to augment his budget to include that. But I just wanted you to be aware of that. And frankly, I would appreciate your support of the committee's policy and the process that, those small items need to find a home and they're an operational expense. They're not really capital in nature for purposes of the capital improvement plan. So as you look at this in a nutshell, we've got about $1.87 million overall in in capital. If you remember from our meeting last week, free cash is about $805,000. That's what we have available. We've got community preservation funds, we've got some grant money, and then we have funds that are available through the enterprise funds, water and sewer. So this is, as I said at your last meeting, it's mostly, equipment replacement. Next year, you're going to see the fire station project coming forward for full funding. You're probably going to see some roof replacements at one of the schools. And hopefully we'll have healthy free cash and we'll be able to continue to invest in cruisers and other vehicle and equipment replacement. So this is the draft. These are the projects you'll be hearing about. As the departments come to you, they're going to talk to you about their upcoming fiscal capital budget requests, but they're also going to walk you through briefly all the projects they have going out for the 6 years. And the beauty of this process is when car 3 comes up or a one-ton dump truck comes up for replacement, you will have heard about it and talked about it for 5 to 6 years before it comes forward for funding. And that's not to say some projects don't, come up on an emergency basis. Projects move up, they move back, they fall off because we find grants. That's why it's a planning process. But everything that you see that's in here has been in the capital improvement plan for the last 5 years, and you've talked about it. And so, but this is a chance to talk about it in a little bit more detail. Tonight, police, fire. At your next meeting, DPW will talk about the pickleball courts and all of the other highway and water and sewer enterprise fund projects. So I can answer through the chair if anybody has any questions about this capital budget at this point before we get into talking about the departmental detail.
I have a quick comment.
Yep.
So I guess my only comment, just for folks that don't know how the CPA funds work and why we're spending a lot of money on that, on the recreation. I mean, I think pickleball is great, but can you just kind of elaborate like how the CPA funds are designated or need to be
Sure.
designated per the state?
Sure. It's a great question, Tom. So Community Preservation Act was adopted by town meeting. The voters agreed to put a 1% surcharge on their taxes for funding community preservation projects. So under the statute, it falls into 3 main categories. It's historic preservation, recreation, and affordable housing. And so you have to spend the minimum amount each year, 10% on each of those 3 buckets. And then the balance you can spend on whatever you like. In the beginning, there's a surcharge at the Registry of Deeds. And so at the beginning of this program, the state would match 100% of whatever amount of funds you raise through this adoption. And communities will adopt anywhere from typically 1 to 3% surcharge. So we're on the lower end, 1%, and the state would invest, as I said, it was 100% match. And so we're able to do recreation projects and affordable housing projects and historic preservation projects, things that typically are lower priority for communities when you look at the other things that are around here, police, fire, DPW, schools. Those things will always tend to rank a little bit higher than adding new recreational facilities. And this legislation was designed specifically to funnel money to affordable housing, affordable housing, recreation, and historic preservation projects. So they have a little bit different process. It's run on an annual basis. They get their allotment from the surcharge and then the match from the state, which I don't want to speak off the top of my head, but it's dipped well below 20% is the state match. It's still nice for those finance people on a committee. 20% still a nice return on your investment, not as great as 100%, which is what it was. But once Boston joined, they sort of sucked a lot of the revenues out. And there's been a number of proposals to increase the community preservation match, raising the fees at the registry and so forth. But so the money we get from the state is considerably less than what we did when the project started, but it's funded some wonderful projects in the town. We put lights up at the middle school for the football and the soccer programs. We've made improvements down at our parks. They funded part of the improvements that we're making. You heard about at your meeting last week to Assabet Park. But their process is a separate process from ours, and it's an annual process, and it's designed to, as I said, bring recreational, affordable housing and historic preservation projects forward with a little bit of subsidy from the state in terms of the funding. So that's why you'll see a project like pickleball sort of although we've been talking about it, it's certainly not in our 5-year capital improvement plan. The CPC has their own process. This committee and my office has given some suggestions and in terms of how they can take a little bit longer term view and sort of put projects in the queue so that everything isn't just an application out of, I won't say out of the blue, but just done anew every year. And what they've done, a lot of these projects, is they've funded the design and the engineering work one year and then the construction the next. So it's actually worked really well. I think they've done a fantastic job. And we purchased White Cliffs to try to preserve White Cliffs as a historic building in town. That was funded through the CPC. We've done lots, as I said, lots of recreational, affordable housing projects that arguably would be difficult to push based on our priority up into the capital budget and the capital improvement plan. So probably a longer explanation than you like, but yeah, sometimes people will look at this and they say, well, how come you're delaying culvert and drainage projects to do pickleball? Two separate funding sources. The community preservation funds can't be used to do drainage projects. It's earmarked specifically for those 3 buckets: affordable housing, recreation, and historic preservation. So, but it's a significant amount of money and it is a capital investment. And this body has made the decision that although the funding isn't under your control, your job as an advisory committee is to make recommendations regarding capital improvements to town meeting. And so even though it is a community preservation project, you have historically weighed in and provided your support on those projects where you see fit. Answer your question, Tom?
Yeah, no, I thought that was great. Just for people that are not familiar with the process, I think that really explained it well.
Yeah, and that's great too. And I appreciate that because somebody, if you look at, when we get to looking at the full 6-year plan, we'll say, well, where did pickleball courts come from? It's just like the affordable housing projects. They're always in the hunt for foreclosures or opportunities to partner with Habitat for Humanity. And those projects, just kind of pop up. They're not necessarily something that you can plan for, 6 years out. And I think the CPC, has done a very good job also when people come in with particularly historic preservation projects. They've asked for more information. And like I said, they've divided oftentimes their approval up into design and engineering so that they have better confidence in the cost estimates for construction. Because I think sometimes when you have well-meaning community groups, and by the way, it doesn't have to be a department. It's not the town of Northborough. It can be, somebody who owns a historic building in town that would like to access these funds. They don't always have the sophistication and the resources to do proper engineering and cost estimating. So we want to make sure that that's good information. We have good information going to town meeting. So any other questions on the tentative capital improvement plan? As I said to you at your last meeting, this is pretty routine equipment replacement by and large. There's nothing really big here, and there's nothing in this list that you haven't discussed for the last 5 years. Big building projects, and initiatives are going to be on the horizon for next year, and I imagine we'll spend a little bit more time on those in the future. So Mr. Chairman, unless you have any questions on the preliminary capital budget, and again, you're going to have an opportunity to discuss every one of these projects with the appropriate department over the next couple of weeks.
No, John, I'm good with that. Thank you.
Okay.
So I guess the next item on the agenda would be the police department. Chief Liver, you want to tell us what you're asking for this year?
Certainly, Mr. Chairman, thank you. This would be for the replacement of 3 police cruisers. As you know, we've had a long-standing replacement schedule of 2 cars 1 year, 3 cars the next. Our patrol cars that we use are in the fleet for 4 years or 100,000 miles, which we have found has over the years been the best way to maintain them and ready operational status. We buy the cars anew. It includes we purchase an extended warranty for either 100, depending on the manufacturer, 100,000 miles for 4 years or 125 for 5 years. So most of the major mechanical expenditures are taken care of under the warranty. Usually after the 4th or 5th year, when a vehicle's here, the cost of maintaining them off of warranty is prohibitive and they start to become expensive to maintain and repair. This year, we're looking to replace 3 cars. This is a normally scheduled replacement cycle where it would be 3. And that would keep us at the current level that we've been maintaining for some time. And it's gone up a little bit because, the cost of cars has gone up and the equipment that we use to install the equipment that is installed in the cars, although we do try to use existing equipment to the extent possible. But sometimes the model year changes or the design of the vehicle changes and things like prisoner cages don't fit anymore. They need to be replaced. Light bars are too long, they overhang, and they need to be replaced. But that's basically asking for $50,000 per car. And that's the extent of this year's requests for capital as far as the police cruisers go.
Chief, if I can just chime in for a moment through the chair, I just want to remind this body that if you recall in fiscal 2021, the chief was on a schedule of 2 vehicles, 3 vehicles, 2 vehicles, 3 vehicles. With the delay of that vehicle in fiscal 21, he originally had requested 2 per the normal replacement schedule. We were only able to finance 1 of them. And so that's why, as you see in this detail sheet in fiscal 2023, that would normally have been a 2-vehicle year that has now become a 3 year. So now you have 3 consecutive years we're replacing 3 vehicles. As I say, delaying capital, it doesn't go away. You just have to fit it in someplace else. And before the chief goes on, just so we're clear, so this sheet that's being shown right now, this is the capital improvement plan, 6 years out, 6 years for just the police department. And just so folks realize, so we're talking about 3 vehicles in fiscal 22. Everything in the out years is on a planning basis. But what we want to do for you, as we do every year, is the chief now is going to walk you through the balance of those projects that he has in the out years, give you an update if the prices have changed, and if we are able to seek or obtain any grants on those projects, he'll discuss those. So unless anybody has any questions on the cruiser replacement before he moves on, because this is going to town meeting in April.
Chief, I have a question.
Yes.
At the end of life, when we're disposing of vehicles, how do we do that? And what do we do about the residual value at that point in time?
We normally trade them in with whoever we're purchasing the cars for and offset the cost of the vehicle. There are occasions when another town department may want to repurpose one. For instance, the DPW uses one of our, actually the cruiser that's pictured here. That's actually a 2013 car. We need to update that. That car was painted all black, and that's in use by the DPW right now currently, because we own the cars. And so, yeah, they either get repurposed or they get traded in. We try to trade them in at 4 years with less than 100,000 miles. We get a really pretty good return on them.
Thanks, Chief.
Okay.
Yeah, John, I'll just tell you, when I started here, we had like 148 pieces of rolling stock because we kept buying stuff and nobody would get rid of anything. So I have a very strict 1 in, 1 out policy. And if we're holding it or it's moving down the line, and you'll hear when you meet with the fire chief tonight, that a couple of his vehicles are being replaced. They bump down the line and then one gets traded in or surplused. We used to run auctions, and frankly, my experience was they were way more time consuming, and we weren't seeing much of a better return on them. And the other issue is when we do an auction, then we have to worry about liability, and then we have to make sure that people are actually, when it goes back to a dealer, the lettering gets stripped off. We don't have anybody driving around with a town of Northborough police vehicle. So there were a lot of issues with us auctioning, and frankly, we determined that after spending all the time and energy of running a public bid, we weren't any better off. So the trade-in is the way to go.
Thanks, John. Thanks, Chief.
You're welcome. The next project we have in the chute here is the replacement of our emergency backup generator here at the station. That's a full building generator. It powers everything in the station. Obviously, this is our 911 communications center. All of our radio dispatching is done for police, fire, EMS, even DPW. This generator here we have in the station is this year will be 32 years old. It's had some long runs of power where, not too long ago, back a few years when we had a long power outage, it ran 3 days straight. It developed a radiator leak that was going to cost us around $15,000 to repair, but using some contacts that I had and a personal acquaintance that does radiator repair, it ended up costing us $800. But we ended up, it's had the block heater replaced, and it's inside the building. And current building codes require that generators be outside the building for obvious reasons. We did have an exhaust leak in there, and actually that same year that we had the generator running for 3 years, it caused a fire on the outside of the building where the clapboards caught fire. And we've had to since then modify the exhaust stack. It really does not belong inside the building, and when it's running, it's very loud. So it's a massive generator. There's far more economical models out there, but it would have to be mounted outside the building. And the earlier prices and estimates that we got, this is going back now a couple of years, to mount that outside on a pad and to put the underground conduits into the building was approximately $60,000. So obviously at some point in time, we'll have to do some requests for proposals and see what the numbers come out as, and may have to adjust that appropriately. But it's an essential piece of equipment that we just can't leave expecting it just to start and run every time we use it. I know back some years ago, actually, I believe in the same period of time, the fire department's generator failed. It was based on age, and they had a hard time getting parts. So again, we want to avoid that here. This is a very critical facility here for the town.
So along those lines, again, Chief, I'm going to chime in because I want people to feel warm and fuzzy that the police department isn't going to go without power, and our 911 systems aren't going to go down if this generator dies. Several years ago, we went to town meeting supported by this committee, and we got a generator on a rolling generator on a trailer. And then we spent money and we wired our critical infrastructure, town hall, the police department, the fire department, and some of our main pump station in town that handles 98% of the flow. And so in the event that we have a power outage and this generator were to go down, within 10 minutes across the street, they'll wheel this generator over. It's pre-wired. They fire it up, they plug it in, and they're back in business. And so that is our, when it comes to emergency planning, we are belts and suspenders. So that's one of the reasons why we have the luxury to plan for the replacement of this a couple years out, because we do have a backup to the backup essentially. So that puts us in good shape. The other thing is, if you remember at town meeting last year, we had a generator replacement for the highway garage. And so we were able to get 75% of that funded through a federal grant. So as this thing is in the plan, our goal is to see what's out there potentially for federal assistance on this project. So we have a backup to the backup, and we use this time again to seek grant funding if it's out there and available to us.
Question? Fuel source, biodiesel or gas, natural gas?
This is natural gas.
It is. And the new one will be also, I presume?
Natural gas.
Yeah.
I think we could look at the potential for perhaps a dual fuel, just in case there's an interruption in natural gas supply, but that's something we'd have to look at moving forward.
Thanks, Chief.
Thank you, John, for bringing that up. We also do have a maintenance contract, or the generator is serviced about 4 times a year. So it is well maintained. It's getting on in years, like me. So, so next on the agenda here, we have dispatch console. Not to be confused with the dispatch console that my predecessor, Chief Leahy, had replaced, which was the radio communications aspect of it. And if you look on the photo on the details sheet, if you go from the left on the bottom tier, there's 4 computer screens. That would be the 3rd computer over from the left. That's what we had replaced. That controls all of our radios. The dispatchers put the cursor on the radio that they want to talk to. It's digital, and that's what that was referring to. When I refer to the dispatch console center upgrades this time, I'm talking about what you see there in the 1980s vintage NASA launch control consoles that are really not very user friendly. This is like furniture, out of the Cold War era, and if you can see the photos of the computer screens, it's just not user friendly in there. And what we're looking to do is streamline that with some ergonomic workstations. At times we have 2 dispatchers on. We have 2 complete dispatch centers, stations rather. One is not in this picture. This is our main console. But there are much more ergonomic ways of arranging those computer screens and using split screens and eliminating some of this mess and just making the room just that much more user friendly. We have dispatchers, they're in here for 8, sometimes 16 hours a day. Lighting's an issue. So we're looking at just upgrading that room to a point where it's state of the art as far as, ease on the eyes and being able to access information quickly. Again, this is a placeholder for $60,000. That was based on some early estimates that I got. That would include raising the floor with like a computer room style floor so that it would be easier to run cables and communications wires. Again, the building was built in 1989. Technology at the time was taking off, and communications was not quite what it is today. So this room is full of conduits that have been added on and run down the walls, our security systems, our cameras. It's just outdated. So it needs to be cleaned up and modernized.
Before you move on, Chief, if I may comment. So the chief sort of glanced or touched upon this, but one of the issues that we're finding is that we're not the small, sleepy town we were, when this facility was originally built. And there are times where we are trying to get to 2 dispatch. If there's an emergency or there's a storm, you need 2 dispatchers on. The room is not designed for 2 dispatchers. And at some point, and I hate to say this while the chief is here listening to me, because we have these discussions often, but at some point we're going to need to have multiple dispatchers working at least during the peak call volume times. And in order to make that functional, this space needs to be modified to do that efficiently and effectively moving forward at some point. So it is due, as you can see, like I said, it's due out several years. Gives us time to think this through, get good cost estimates, get some additional information, and to plan appropriitly. But the chief is absolutely correct. This space is run 24/7. And when there's a storm or an emergency, I've been in this room where there's 5 of us in this room taking phone calls of down trees and wires and putting it on a big whiteboard. And it can definitely be done a little more efficiently and effectively. But again, we're planning for that.
Thank you, John. Well put. Moving on, the next project up to fiscal 26 is the multi-band portable radio system. As I explained to you in years past, we operate on a VHF high band frequency. The only towns around us that use that frequency is the town of Shrewsbury. So we can easily change our channel to Shrewsbury and our VHF radios. In our cruises, in order to communicate with all of the towns around us, we have 4 different mobile radios. We have a VHF high band. We have an 800 band radio, which allows us to communicate with the state police and on a statewide mutual aid channel called LPS 7, Local Public Safety 7. We have low band so that we can talk to towns like Boylston, West Boylston, and UHF so that we can talk to Westboro and Berlin. This portable radio allows the offices to talk to all of those communities off of the portable radio. And they are expensive. They're about $7,000 a piece, but it eliminates the inability of us to communicate when we go mutual aid to Westboro. An officer has to get out of the car. And the nice thing about this is if they're on the LPS 7 or the operational channels, we could have an officer that's on an investigation and maybe out in Lee, Mass, and doing an investigation. One of the detectives, he can call on the radio and it'd be like he's in our backyard because it uses the statewide backbone for communications operability. It's state of the art. It's top shelf. It doesn't get any better than that. Westboro has them. Southboro has them. It's where we need to go. Right now, our portable radios are limited that we can talk to, Shrewsbury, MEMA, and the fire department. But again, this is just something that we use moving forward. It's a very expensive outlay, so that's why it's put out a few years.
Chief, also, I just would chime in with about 4 years ago or so, maybe 5 years ago, the Board of Selectmen opted to sign into a statewide mutual aid agreement, which means our officers can be deployed and have their full authority anywhere in the state. And so that in the case of an emergency, that is always a potential possibility. And the interoperability of these radios would obviously be critical in a situation like that. Plus, because we are in this mutual aid agreement, if we need to call folks in and they come from further away than Shrewsbury or Westboro, we want to be able to effectively communicate with them. This is one of these programs where, frankly, I get frustrated because you're going to hear from the fire chief when he goes through his, because he's got some radios in his request as well. But it's frustrating because these are things that the state should be incentivizing and mitigating the costs of for that interoperability for emergency planning. And it's frustrating to me that, in my opinion, they haven't done enough to put grant programs out there that would allow communities to purchase these things at a more affordable rate. Because this is a huge number for radios. How many radios? Is it 20? It's 23 radios.
Yes, there'll be 20. One spare.
So very expensive, and there should be some support for these. So, thank you.
And that's all I have.
All right,
So
very good.
Yep. So that's the end of the police chief's request. And again, as we do every year, and again, I know we're being broadcast now, so I want the folks at home to understand this, is that we talk about all the projects out 6 years. And so, by time, if you're still on this committee in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, you're gonna understand this, because you will have heard about it for 4 or 5 years straight, hopefully with a grant by the time we get there, but I guess we'll see. So.
All right, very good, Chief, thank you.
Yeah.
Next order of business is the fire department.
So as Chief Parenti comes online, I just want to draw your attention to the table. This is the 6-year capital improvement plan for the fire department. He actually has a plan that goes out many more years in terms of his equipment replacement, but for purposes of the plan, this is what you have here. I just want to, on the highlighted column here, when we put this whole capital improvement plan together, we have this is the summary sheet, and it has all the page numbers. All the page numbers have to be updated. That's why that's highlighted. But you can see here from 22 to 27, these are all the projects he's going to walk you through, with a particular focus on the fiscal 2022 projects that we're looking for funding and your support for April town meeting in this year. Parente, you here?
I'm ready. I'm just waiting for you guys to stop talking, you know? So-
Fair, all right, fair enough, funny man.
All right,
Yeah,
you're up.
John, could you take us down to the next slide, please? So as the town administrator alluded to, I'm going to start with the projects that are we're looking at for fiscal year 2022, and then we'll go on and I'll explain some of the other ones. So the first product you see here is to replace our pickup truck. Now, interestingly enough, and John had mentioned that we look out 6 years with all of these. This was originally on our replacement for 2017, the year after I came here. Just because it's on the list doesn't mean that we have to replace it if it's still in good shape. I don't believe in just spending money just because it's on the list and we have to. So we actually put it off, and now it's time. This vehicle is it's a 1-ton 4-wheel drive vehicle. It's our primary tow vehicle. So it tows our boat, it tows our 3 trailers. It is our support vehicle for our dive team members when they're deployed across the district. And it also does inspections, investigations. Whenever we have a fire, it always shows up to pick up all the hose. So it's really a workhorse. Does quite a bit for us. The price for the vehicle that we have in there is $80,000, and people say, wow, $80,000 for a pickup, that's a heck of a lot of money. Well, with this vehicle, it's not just the vehicle itself, it's all the radios that go in it, it's all the lights that go in it, it's any additional equipment we may have to buy, the tow package. And as you gentlemen know who have been around for a couple of years, just because I asked for $80,000 doesn't mean I spend $80,000. I spend what we need to spend. And then I think it was the engine I gave when I first here, I gave back $100,000. It's the same thing with this. If we don't spend $80,000, I turn back what we don't need. What I don't want to do is start cutting off edges and shaving this and shaving that because we don't have enough money. So I'd always rather give back what we don't need. So that's the first project for 2022. The next one is replacing car 1. Now, car 1 is my vehicle, and if you've ever had a chance to look inside this vehicle, I think it takes a degree to figure out how to run this. There are multiple radios and scanners and repeaters and all kinds of stuff in this vehicle because it was set up not just as a vehicle for the chief to utilize to respond in, but as a command and an operations vehicle. And the idea would be going forward to keep it in that same vein with probably less radios, but they'd be more expensive. And that the radio, just as the chief had pointed out with the portables, we can now buy multi-band, multi-channel mobile radios that do the same thing. So right now I have a high band, I have a low band, I have an 800, I have all these different radios in my car just so I can talk to everyone. Going forward, we would have 1 to 2 radios that I can talk to everyone with, one for fire ground operations and one for to speak with fire alarm. The intent is to take this current car and to repurpose it. So whenever possible, I like to repurpose something instead of getting rid of it. And our car, what's referred to now as car 4, and I apologize for the confusing numbering. We have a car 1, a car 3, and a car 4. And people ask me, what happened to car 2? I said, I don't know. I wasn't here when I got here. This is kind of the numbering we had. So this car would be repurposed down and become the new car 2. And what that's utilized for is the on-duty captain utilize it to respond if I'm not available. It gives them a command vehicle to use. It has some of the same, not all the same capabilities, but some of the same capabilities because some of the stuff will come out and go into the new vehicle. So it won't necessarily have all the research capabilities and all that mine will. But it'll allow us to repurpose that vehicle and replace a vehicle with over 90,000 miles on it, which is what the current car 4 has. So that would be the intent with this one. And again, $76,000 base cost for a Tahoe SUV, or and again, no decision has been made on the model yet, but it's anywhere between $50,000 and $65,000 depending on what we're going for. And again, you have replacement radios, lights, all that stuff that needs to go into these. So these are the two primary projects for 2022. Before I go on to the rest of them, are there any questions on these two items? Okay, thank you very much. John, could you slide to the next one? Now you got me all messed up. Do you want me to speak about this, John, or do you want to speak to the fire station?
Yeah, I'm happy to, happy to speak to the building project since we're kind of in the midst of it. So as you know, we had a feasibility study that was done regarding the fire station. It was a space and needs a programmatic space needs analysis. Ultimately, the feasibility study determined, as you well know from the presentations you've received in the past, that we can't expand on the existing site and get the space needs that are required for this operation. Originally, this station, built in 1974, was for a volunteer department with no ambulance. We now run 3 ambulances, and we run 2 ambulances in a backup rather, and a full paid station fire staff, along with a call department as well. So the feasibility study was completed. It was recommended that we seek an alternative site. We went through a public bidding process and identified 6165 West Main Street. This is the old Pierce gas station across the street from Dunkin' Donuts. We then got into a very long negotiation with the owner. Then COVID-19 hit, and all of our projects got delayed for a bit. But we have entered into a purchase and sale with the owner for the 6165 West Main Street. You probably have noticed that all the buildings have been demolished. Under the purchase and sale, the owner, seller rather, is responsible for removing all structures, including structures underground, and handling any required remediation. This is a former gas station, and although remediation work was completed, based on our review, we were concerned that there might be some other issues out there. Right now, there is identified contamination on the site. The town hired its own LSP, a licensed site professional, to work with the seller and to make sure that our interests are being taken care of with regard to the remediation work. So right now, we're probably looking at a final closing on the new property sometime at the end of March. We also have a purchase and sale that we are discussing with a small property, 10 Monroe Street. These were all part of the bid process and the presentation on the feasibility study that you've received in the past. And the study is available on the website as well if anybody wants to see it. But there's a small quarter-acre parcel that we're interested in purchasing as well. That would essentially give us what we identified as the only centrally located viable site for a fire station in Northborough. So we're very lucky to have that site available. It hasn't been the easiest site to get through the purchase and sale on, but I'm confident that we are working our way through. So given that, we did have an appropriation approved at town meeting to pay for the owner's project manager under Mass General Law, Chapter 149, or Section 7 rather. You have to have an owner's project manager for any project over 1.4 million. So we have to go through a public process to hire that person or firm. And then we will hire the architect to come back and do the full design development, all the way through construction documents and bidding. So we anticipate following the closing on the property that the committee will get going again, hire the OPM, and work on the design for the new fire station. That will take place through the spring, summer. We'll come back in the fall, updating the Financial Planning Committee, Appropriations, Board of Selectmen, and the public with the design and where that project is. And then ultimately, it will come back to town meeting in 2022 for final approval. The estimated construction costs, not inclusive of the soft costs for design and OPM, was $15 million. We've escalated that by 3% over 2 years and rounded it to 16 million. The final cost will be based on the final design. So that cost will move around as we complete the design. But essentially, this project is moving forward through this calendar year. It will come back for a vote at town meeting. It will be a debt excluded project, which means that the debt service, the financing costs for principal and interest on this project would be excluded from the limits of Prop 2.5, as all large building projects are in accordance with our financial policies. And then it would go to the ballot and need to receive approval by the voters at the ballot. So that's the schedule. That's where the project is after a little bit of a delay in the acquisition of the property, and then really the delay caused by the pandemic. The project's back on track and moving forward. There's no appropriation that's needed this year. We have the money that's been appropriated. We just now need to engage the RFP process for the owner's project manager and to select a designer, the architect, to move forward and complete all the work to be able to bid this thing out. So I know you've received extensive presentations and information on this in the last couple cycles, but we can answer any questions that anybody may have at this stage. So again, no approvals required either at town meeting or at the ballot, and this cycle project is just moving forward.
Thank you, John. Appreciate that. So the next project in the queue is our regular ambulance replacement. Our ambulances, without question, are the workhorses of our department. They get the most runs, the most miles. They're transporting to Worcester all the time, Marlboro, sometimes to Framingham. So they get a lot of work. We have transitioned from the large truck style. If you recall seeing our old ambulances, they looked like these big trucks. We've gone back to more of a traditional box type ambulance for several reasons. Number one, they're less expensive. Number two, they're easier to drive. And number three, it's actually cheaper to have them worked on. So to me, and the firefighters, the paramedics like them better for operational purposes. Easier to get in and out of places and around. So you'll see the prices have gone up on these somewhat from the last one we purchased. You'll see fiscal year 2023, we have 400,000, and fiscal year 2026, we have 415,000. And the way our process with these ambulances, we have 3 ambulances, and I instituted that when I came here, mainly because we need to have 2 ambulances that are in service all the time. We're that busy with our EMS calls. We probably do 68 to 70% EMS calls. So what happens is we buy an ambulance, that becomes our primary ambulance. The next one goes back to second due, and that one covers all second ambulance calls, or if the primary is out, it moves up to primary. We then have a mechanical backup, and that mechanical backup is used for whenever one of the first 2 is out of service, or in the event we have a standby at, say, a high school football game. We take that ambulance to the high school football game because it is licensed and it is able to be utilized for that. And that way it still allows us to keep our 2 primary ambulances in service to deal with our call volume. So the intent would be to replace our 2013 ambulance in 2023 with a new ambulance, and then have our 2020 move back to our backup. And then in 2026, we would purchase an additional ambulance and move them, continue to move them that way. One of the things with ambulances is some of the equipment on ambulances are very expensive. One of the things that the town allowed us to do with this last purchase was to purchase a power cot with a power lift. And what that means is the cot not only is controlled with basically like with a battery, so our guys don't have to lift it up and down. It also now hooks into the ambulance and it loads itself. So not only does it lift, our guys don't have to lift up a 300, 400, or 500 pound patient and try and support them. So the cost of that is well worth saving one back injury from any of our people. So very excited with this. It's a great project. The guys, again, they spend a lot of time in this. They spend a lot of time designing these. So Let's go ahead and move on to the next one if we could.
Just if I may chime in
sure.
before we move on, I think it's important for the committee and the public to realize that we run an ambulance service. We do charge fees,
Yes.
and the acquisition cost is $400,000 that you see in fiscal 2023 will actually be paid for out of those fees. So there'll be no general fund money or tax dollars going to the normal replacement and acquisition of these ambulances. And as the chief said, he has them on a regular rotation, and that's why we do charge fees. And it's mostly, as you know, everybody's required to have insurance, so it's third-party payers.
Yep.
Federal government doesn't pay very well, but we take what they give us. But if you look under the column over here where it says source of funds, and there's a table down at the bottom, you see that 5, that's EMS revolving funds. So these will be paid for by the fees that we charge when we respond to an ambulance call.
Yeah. And just our two current, our second due and our third due ambulance both have over 70,000 miles on them. So that's how quickly they build up mileage. It's just amazing. So the next item is our rescue truck replacement. So the rescue we run is a rescue pumper. So it can function as an engine or as a pumper at a building fire, but it is also designed for rescue work. So it has Hurst extrication tools on it. It has additional rescue struts on it. It's got all kinds of additional equipment. The problem is it's currently overloaded for everything that we need on it because it runs up on the highway a lot. So what we're looking at doing is speccing something that's called a wet rescue. So it has a little bit more rescue compartmentization, but it still has the capability of functioning as an engine, which allows us when we have to participate every so many years in an ISO rating, Insurance Service Organization rating, which helps set our rating for our fire service. And we need so many fire engines in order to get a satisfactory rating. Well, by keeping this as a wet rescue, it allows us to do that. The estimated cost is $800,000, which I know is amazing. When I first started buying fire trucks, there were a heck of a lot less than that. I look at these numbers now, and what we did to get this number actually, Captain Desatel, who's the chairman of our apparatus committee, actually brought in about 6 different vendors because we wanted to have a good number coming forward. And this was kind of the average of all of them. Wasn't the top one, wasn't the lowest one, but this was the truck and some equipment. Again, as I mentioned before, I like to repurpose equipment when I can. So why buy all new hose if we can put hose on here if our hose is fine? But we may need a new Hurst tool depending on the age of the tool when this is, in 2024 and the condition of it. Or we may need some new rescue struts. So this is for the truck and for some equipment. And anything we don't spend, again, goes back to the town. You can
Chief,
slide up. Yep.
If I can ask you to clarify something, because
Sure.
I get these questions a lot from folks, especially the public. Can you just please explain the difference between an engine, a rescue, and a pumper, and whether or not they're the same machine with different functions, or we see those terms used interchangeably sometimes.
We do. And one other thing before I get into that, I forgot to mention is all the maintenance for this vehicle, since this vehicle is a rescue and spends most of its calls doing rescue work. Part of the maintenance for this actually comes out of that EMS revolving account again, because it does motor vehicle accidents, rescue work. So that's another benefit to this rescue. So interesting enough, the fire service loves calling one truck many different things just because that's what we do. And depending on the part of the country you're from, you could have a tanker, which here in the Northeast is a truck with 1,000 gallons of water, and out in California has wings and drops a whole bunch of water on fires. Out there, it's called a tender. So here we have engines, which normally are an attack engine. So it's an engine that is set up to respond to building fires. Its primary purpose is to attack building fires. Water supply has a significant number of hose on it, so it can supply itself. And that's the primary purpose of that. A pumper, depending on the decade we're talking about, to be honest with you, and again, I apologize for sometimes mixing different types of things. A pumper primarily does water supply. So isn't necessarily set up for fire attack, but it would be set up to run to supply water from the hydrant, from a dry hydrant, from a cistern, from any kind of other water source to the fire scene for the engine to utilize. What we do lots of times is we start mixing once we get a little, instead of calling it a rescue engine, we refer to it as a rescue pumper, because what a rescue is set up for extrication. It's set up for all our airbags are on this truck, so heavy lifting. All our cutting tools are on this truck. If we get a building collapse, if we get a heavy rescue we need, that's all on this truck, plus the capability of supplying water to the fire scene. It does have limited fire attack capabilities. It has some pre-connect hose, but not as many pre-connect hose as an engine has. So that's really the big difference. And don't even get me into towers, elevated streams, and all those other things, because we can go crazy on those as well, all the different names. But that's the big difference between engines, rescues, and pumpers.
Thank you, Chief. Whenever I do training sessions on capital planning, I always like to ask those questions. These are people who serve on finance committees across the state. And I say, what's the difference between an engine, a pumper, and a rescue? What's the difference between a loader, a backhoe, and a skid steer? And they look at me with a blank face. I'm like, that's why when we do our capital planning in Northborough, we have this format. That's what an engine looks like, or that's what a rescue looks like. Or, like you just talked to the police chief, what does that old generator look like? Picture's worth 1,000 words, as they say. But when it comes to $800,000 apparatus, you want to see what it looks like and then be able to discern the difference. And you'll see, if you have other pieces of equipment, you can see the difference in what they actually look like. So
yeah, well, thank you, John.
Chief.
I appreciate the opportunity to explain that. And if I got too confused, if it was too confusing, because sometimes that happens, give me a call, drop me an email, and I'm happy to help you out a little bit more. So here's our portable radio replacement, very similar to the police, but my goodness, the police are spending $145,000. I'm asking for $350,000. Why is that? Am I greedy? No, I have a lot more positions that need portable radios. So back in the day when I first started in the fire service, the chief and maybe a captain, the deputy chief, had a portable radio. Now, every firefighter that goes into a building has to have a portable radio on them. It is really your life-saving device. That's how they find you, with your man-down functions, as the chief mentioned about GPS locators. Ours are slightly different than the police. They are more ruggedized, simply because of the beating that we give them. They get exposed to a lot more to water. They're exposed to fire. They all have portable this extra microphone on them, because the firefighters need to be able to get to the mic without having to pull the radio up, because they're already doing other things. So they want to be able to do it. These radios, in fact, have this really neat capability that they pair with a Bluetooth with our new Scott packs that we were able to purchase through a grant that we got a couple years ago. So every day when the firefighter comes on, he pairs, we do have some of these. We have 4 of these right now, or 5 of these, I apologize. They pair the radio to their backpack, which allows them, if you've ever listened to communications at a fire and you go, how the heck can they understand what they're saying? This actually allows it to go right from the mask, right to the radio, without them having to pick up the mic and talk. So it's a wonderful device for that purpose. We have attempted to purchase these with or to get grant funding for these. I think we've gone through 2 cycles now. We're on our 3rd cycle. That would make sense because they're in 2025. So the minute I put something like this onto the CIP, I start going for grants for it. And John made a point when we were able to get our SCBA grants. It was the last year before they were purchased that we got awarded the grant.
Yes. It was like, what was it, $290,000?
Yeah, it was a significant amount of money. Yeah.
And it sat on the plan for 3 years, and you applied multiple years. And then the year we had to fund it, the time was up, you got the grant.
Yeah. Yes. So this year, on Friday, we submitted the same grant again for this. We reworked it a little bit. We looked for any way we could try and save somebody or make it more pleasing. But as the police chief said, we have the same problem that they do. We are running on 154 frequency. We have to be able to talk to people who are running on 800 frequency, on 700 frequency, on the 400 band frequency. such as Westboro, Shrewsbury, Marlboro. I have one of these portables. I went to Marlboro for a building fire the other day, and I could talk with the same portable to my engine company and to the Marlboro companies, which is just amazing. The technology has come so far, but it does come with a cost. And our estimated cost for what we need is $350,000. That puts enough portables in each of the trucks for any off-duty people coming back on. So, and for any of the on-duty people to be utilizing them. One more project, I believe, John.
Question?
Oh, yes,
Question, Chief? Approximately how many units are behind this number?
about 43.
43?
Right. So it's based on what's what they call seated positions. So each engine, each tower, each rescue has so many seated position, whether it's 2, 4, 6, whatever it happens to be. And then we take that, we multiply it out. And in order to meet ISO specs, you're supposed to, and safety specs, you're supposed to have a portable for each seated position on the
One
truck.
for one. Okay.
Right.
Good. John, would it make sense to have that quantified somewhere in here for anyone
Yeah,
reading this in the future?
and that's why we love to do this for you guys. Like we want to answer the questions, but yeah, I actually, funny, John, you said that. I just made a note to put the number of units in here. It's
Thank
helpful.
you.
We want people to know what we're talking about.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, and so again, it's about twice the price, and it's about twice the number of portables. So that it makes sense. And again, they're ruggedized, so they're slightly more expensive than the PDs, because I can tell you, firefighters are not gentle. There's an old story: you put a firefighter in a round room with 2 steel balls, he breaks one and loses the other, and that's pretty accurate. So that's why we have to buy them a little ruggedized. So if you could go to the last project, John, which is the replacement of engine 1. Engine 1 is a 2005 engine. Engines tend to get about 20 years of life out of them. I can tell you that we take pretty darn good care of our apparatus, and I thank the town for a wonderful maintenance budget, and they allow us, when something's broken, to fix it. It's not a matter of patching it. We actually repair them. We don't just put Band-Aids on them. And that means a whole lot to us. So this truck is our second due right now. So we have a primary due, which is engine 2. Engine 1 is our second due. As I said before, the rescue pumper can run as a pump, and then engine 3 is our tanker tender. So this truck is due for replacement. It'll be in its 20-year service. Engine 2 will then move back in 2025 to the second due, and the new truck's engines are just as expensive as a pumper or as a rescue. We picked $800,000. It may come in a little bit less than that because it's probably slightly less than the rescue. But again, I hate to come back and say, hey, I'm $50,000 or I'm $100,000 short. I'd rather come back and say, hey guys, look what we did. They worked hard. I'm giving you $100,000 back. And I believe that's the last project. So questions?
It is.
Nothing? Come on, I didn't do that good of a job.
John, question. As we've got projects that go out multiple years, and you've got an estimated number here which is based on what you know today. Each year, do you go out and mark the market, which says, okay, that pumper is not going to be $800,000 in 2 years; it's going to be $950 or something like that? Do you mark the market and update the projected expenditures accordingly?
Yeah, what we try to do is give you updated numbers when we meet with you each year. Some projects have escalation built into them. When the presenter talks to you, they're usually explicit about where the costs come from. But yeah, each year, we do update. Sometimes, as you saw in the police chief, there's just an escalator factor built in. As you see the same piece of equipment being replaced out, you saw it in the ambulance, it's up a little bit. What the approach I use with the department heads is, you can put a number out in year 6 or 5, and I'll want to know where that number came from, and you get some basic estimates. Each year it moves up, it needs to be more refined. When things get into on deck, so next year it's going to go into a capital plan, I want a rock solid number at that point in time. So as things move up, the number will be much more refined. So that's usually what we do. By the time we get to where it's going to town meeting for approval, like any project that's going in the fiscal 2022, that's based on current cost estimates. One of the things that happens is you would think it'd be easy to do. But, you know, folks don't want to go through the trouble of quoting projects that they know you're not going to fund for 4 or 5 years. So sometimes, believe it or not, we can't get vendors to talk to us or to give us estimates depending on the nature of the project. So when it starts to get on a little closer and on deck, you get a lot more interest, and it takes time and energy sometimes to get quotes. You know, you got to contact 4 or 5 different vendors depending on the nature of the project. So it's very time consuming, but more conceptual numbers in the out years as they move up. Anything that's going to town meeting or on deck, those numbers should be good.
John, if I may, for the projects you saw tonight, John, were updated prices.
Yep,
So
thanks, Chief.
so what we do is just from the fire service side, I know who got a new engine in District 14 or who got a new engine, and we reach out. Hey, Chief, what'd you pay for it? What'd you get on it? What'd you do?
Yep.
So it just gives us, as every year as we get closer. So I don't go from 600,000 to 800,000 and have, whoa, what happened? So I
Right.
can move it up gradually as the times come up.
Good, thank you.
We like to scare you with the numbers on an annual basis. So, all right. So, you know, one of the things that we'll talk about, like, you know, as we start to look at the full plan is, you know, we've got, you know, an $800,000 apparatus in 2024 and then another one in 2025. Ultimately, you know, there's one move a year or so, or, you know, that's sort of the discussion that we have, trying to smooth out the availability of funds to do these projects, but also if you'll see the source of funds code on this one is a 2, 2 and a 6. 2 is general obligation bonds and 6 is free cash. The last engine we bought, we were lucky that we paid cash for it. We used free cash to pay for it. I don't know if it's possible to do that moving forward. The costs keep going up, and obviously an $800,000 piece of equipment is appropriately funded with debt. Now, what we do is we try to match up equipment. We try to finance for 5 years, a big piece, $1 million apparatus. We might finance that for 10 years, even though it has a 20-year useful life. We go with the smallest financing period that we can. That way, we're always turning over the debt and freeing it up. You know, you'll see a lot of small towns, they'll buy a pickup truck and they'll finance it for 10 years. And they may only get 8 years of life out of that. You know, we pay cash for our pickup trucks. And if we had to finance them, I wouldn't finance them for more than 5 years. So we want to turn that debt over because you can artificially look like you're better off than you are. But what happens is you're just stacking that debt up and it's going to eat in the future budget. So we turn it over as quickly as we can. All right. Thank you, Chief. Chief's going to hang on. He's our host tonight, so he's going to be hanging in the background.
All right.
As we wrap up.
Very, very good. Thank you, Chief. The next order of business are the meeting dates. I see, John, that you've attached. There it is.
Yeah. So right now, the way things are laying out, you can see the meetings you've had, and then moving forward on next Tuesday on the 16th. Next Tuesday on the 24th, we'll have DPW coming in with their capital requests. They're the lion's share. They have the most. Police and fire have significant equipment requests, the occasional building project. DPW has a lot of equipment, a lot of infrastructure, and it's going to be a full meeting. But we'll talk about the highway equipment needs, and also water and sewer infrastructure projects. At your last meeting, the DPW director gave you an update on the ongoing projects. So next week, he'll give you an update on the projects that are in the fiscal 2022 capital budget, but also what he sees coming down the pike over the next 6 years. This is one of the things that we're going to spend some time massaging, because we postponed projects last year. We have a constricted budget this year. We're going to see a bubble in 2023 starting to get pushed out, and we need to be realistic about what we can push out and try to pay cash for, and what we're going to need to maybe take on and issue a little bit of debt. Most communities, you know, issue debt for large equipment pieces. We've been very fortunate. we have paid cash for every bit of equipment since 2012, including, as I said, a $688,000 fire engine a couple of years back. I don't know if we're going to be able to do that given the current economy. So we'll need to talk about that next week. Once we get DPW sort of locked in, then you'll have the full 6-year spreadsheet of all the departmental requests at that point. I'm not sure if the schools are going to come in or not. They don't have any fiscal 2022 projects that qualify. So I'm going to have a discussion about whether or not they come in for you guys, but next week will definitely be the full DPW. On March 2nd, that's when we'll review the Community Preservation Committee projects. They'll have a couple of other smaller projects of capital nature that they'll want to talk to you about and ask for your support at town meeting. And then we'll finalize, hopefully, the capital budget and start talking about what your committee recommendations are for fiscal 2022's capital budget. Again, this year being a fairly small and primarily equipment replacement budget. Subsequent years will be a little bit more in depth, particularly next year as we talk about the $16+ million fire station project. That's going to be more than just a 15-minute discussion. So I just want to call your attention. Also, there is the joint budget hearing meeting with the selectmen on March 22nd. That's a joint meeting between appropriations and financial planning. I always include you guys if you want to attend to see that, because obviously the operating budget and the capital budgets are interrelated and impact one another. And then for right now, we've got a town meeting scheduled for April 26th. I imagine coming up, the selectmen are going to be discussing possibly going to one more outdoor meeting since everybody won't be vaccinated. If we do an outdoor meeting, it's not going to take place on a Monday. So we're probably looking at something close to that. We're looking at probably the first or second Saturday in May is what I would think for town meeting. So those dates will shuffle. But right now, those are the bylaw and the charter required dates until they get changed. If the committee has anything else you'd like to work into your schedule or any other departments or, well, we don't have any departments that don't have much to bring forward. Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, John, just one point of clarification. Next week's meeting is actually on a Wednesday.
Thank you.
We had been doing Tuesdays here pretty regular this year. The 24th is in fact a Wednesday, so.
Thank you. Did I say next Tuesday?
Yes, you did.
I've got 3 meetings that week, so I've got Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday, minimally as we sit here today. So we got 3 14-hour days to look forward to next week. But yes, thank you for that clarification. It's Wednesday.
Dave,
Okay.
I do have a question for John. Did you want us to comment on the school? I know we went through this, Dave and I did, 3 superintendents ago, which kind of led to, more stringent enforcement of the policy of not grouping chairs and small items together and trying to get them through as capital. So by way of history for the new members, and I know John covered this, capital project has to be 25,000 or more with a useful life of 5 or more years. In the past, when honestly it was a little bit more adversarial at times too, there was projects presented that combined were over 25,000, but it was death by 1,000 paper cuts. Not one item was an expensive item. So we as a committee kind of said, we're not the overflow. That's not what this committee or this is intended for. And John, and Dave and the other members, I'm comfortable. That's the whole purpose of this committee. I don't see us wanting to change our policy or procedures to have projects like that come through. Is that what you're looking for, John? Kind of us to reiterate that we're where we were, 10, 15 years ago?
And I want to be clear. I want to be clear about this. The superintendent, new superintendent, he is a fantastic partner in everything that we have done together, budgeting, COVID response, everything. And so I think the same response that we gave to police and fire and DPW, which is we don't want to see snow blowers and in hose and firearms in a capital budget, that's in a capital improvement plan. That's not what they're intended for. I think in order for us to say that, then it's incumbent upon me to work with the superintendent to create designated capacity in that operating budget, which might mean that instead of the increase that he's come forward with, that we increase his operating budget, and this is really falls on me to incorporate. He's got about $70,000 worth of these small projects. I think if we increase the operating budget by 35,000, then he can plan his regular replacement. The key that needs to be emphasized through this committee, though, is that line item is for capital. So you can't raid that and spend it on something else and then come back in 2 or 3 years and say, I need snow blowers and I need this because I use that money for something else. So just like police and fire, the fire department was coming in for all kinds of little stuff. They have a capital outlay of, like, I believe it's $20,000 in their operating budget. And it's up to them to plan out for the next 5 years. And when I go through the operating budget, I want to know how you're going to spend that money, because I want to make sure that those things don't show up in a capital budget. That's a conversation I'm very comfortable having with the superintendent. He's just, again, I can't say enough about the partnership. But, you can't just say no, put it in the operating budget when, you know what the last operating budget was. He brought forward a 1% budget for us, right? Okay, that's the kind of partnership last year. Because the revenues were in trouble. So I think it's good to have the policies and to establish expectations, but you have to be realistic. You just can't tell a department that you're not going to fund it here, find it someplace else. So you need to create that capacity in the operating budget, and it needs to stay dedicated.
Right, and
I'm open to having that discussion.
Our committee, for the thousands watching at home, our committee advises on capital items. It's not saying yes or no, we think this should be, you should spend it. They need chairs, they need snow blowers, they need it. It's just, we don't want the overflow. We want to kind of maintain the integrity of each of these. And it's John's job with the department heads who, and everyone works fantastically together to figure that out. So I want to be clear, we're not saying, no, that's not our role. It's just, we want capital items in the capital plan.
Yeah, I think the question that you want to ask is, listen, is this, if we didn't have free cash, available funds, would this be something that you would finance with a general obligation bond for 5 years or more? And if the answer is no, then it has no business being in your capital plan. I would not finance, unless it's new construction, chair replacements, desks, microscopes, a snow blower. And again, his job and the school committee's job is to identify these needs, and collaboratively, we need to find a way to find a home for these things. I think one of the things that we do well here is our boards and committees here, they don't just shout out rhetoric and take impossible positions of, you need to come in with a zero budget and miraculously, we're not going to give any money for capital. And, and there needs to be enough resources for them to be successful. And I think we can work something out. So just so you know, a lot of the requests, they had a long time facilities manager who retired. And what I think they found out was that he was using a lot of his own personal equipment to do a lot of the work around the schools. When he left, his snow blower and his chainsaw and a lot of the other equipment went with him because they were his personal equipment. So they need to have these things. And again, I think this is something that we can work out.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Anything else, John, or anybody else on the committee? Anything else you guys want to bring forward?
No. So as I said, next week we'll go through DPW, a lot of stuff there. One other thing I just want to give you a heads up on is I'm inclined to put a placeholder in the capital improvement plan, and it's a placeholder. As the master plan implementation committee gets going and they start to do their work, I anticipate they're going to come up with a project or two. It may be a study. It could be a downtown revitalization study. It could be they may come forward with something. And I think we want to put a to be determined placeholder, a couple years out so that that committee can do their work, get on track, and when they come back with something, I don't think it's realistic for us to put it 6 years out. So, but I don't know what that's going to be, so I just want you to know, I think something is going to come. Until that committee does their work, we're not sure what it is, but we're going to put a placeholder in there. Again, that placeholder can then get pushed out further. We might see grants to do whatever it is that they want. But not unlike the master plan itself. The master plan itself was $100,000 study that was included in the capital improvement plan. You know, again, significant studies are appropriate. They're appropriate, particularly if they're going to lead to a capital project. So that's something that may come up and we can chat about at a future meeting.
You're gonna put a dollar value on that, John, or just TBD?
To be determined. I'd just be pulling a number in a project out of the air, but I think we want to give a nod to, we went through this, 2-year-long master planning process to develop these goals, these overall goals. And now the master plan implementation committee, which has been appointed by the selectmen, their job is to look at these goals, prioritize them, and to bring forward, what are the next 2 or 3 things that we should be focused on and working on. Those things are going to require funding if they're capital in nature. And so I just want to put a little placeholder in there, and we can talk about it at the appropriate time. Make sense?
Yep, smart.
Okay. Again, our capital
Okay.
plan should be informed and supported by our overall strategic planning, like the master plan. These things are supposed to be interrelated and work together.
Okay. Anything else from anybody? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll move to adjourn.
Is there a second? All those in favor of adjournment, Mike,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
John Rappa,
Yes.
and I vote yes. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Chief.
See you next Wednesday.
Guys, have a good night.
Good night.
You all. Night.
Thank you, Chief.